The text message was waiting for me as I checked out of the doctor's office. It read, "You're not invited to the Rome-Paris leg of the trip until you apologize to your brother for ruining the travel flow." Ruining the flow. That was the crime. My punishment? Banishment from a trip I had meticulously built. What my family, my mother Martha, my father David, and my golden boy brother Mark didn't know was that every single ticket, every first-class seat, every suite was purchased with my points. Points that represented a decade of my life, my sacrifice, and my discipline. And now, I was going to reclaim every single one. If you've ever been the invisible workhorse for a family that constantly uses you and then casts you aside, smash that like button. Subscribe. If you believe that sometimes, the only way to earn respect is to remove the very foundation they stand on. Because this is the story of how a $25,000 dream trip turned into an instant airport nightmare. I am Clara, a senior financial analyst. I thrive on spreadsheets, optimization, and structure. My entire adult life has been a study in delayed gratification. I drove the same reliable sedan for 12 years. I religiously packed my own lunch 5 days a week. And I routinely worked the late shifts and weekends, all to accumulate something truly valuable. My 800,000 rewards points. Those points weren't just free travel. They were financial leverage. They were my emergency fund, my early retirement plan. They were my future. My brother Mark was the polar opposite. He was the golden boy. Handsome, charming, and perpetually unemployed, he specialized in getting by on his looks and the relentless use of his parents' dwindling patience. Mark had a sixth sense for locating the nearest financial safety net, and for years, that net was me. I had covered his security deposit for 2 failed startups and paid off his car loan when he forgot about 3 consecutive payments. Every time he promised gratitude. Every time I got silence. A year ago, Mark announced the family was taking a once-in-a-lifetime European tour. He presented it with all the fanfare of a CEO unveiling a new product, despite having 0 savings. The proposal, of course, landed immediately and heavily in my lap, not as a tentative request, but as a firm expectation. "Clara," Mark drawled over coffee I had bought him, naturally, barely looking up from his phone. "You're the only one who knows how this garbage works. The flights are ridiculously expensive. Just book everything for us using your points. We'll pay you back later in cash, obviously. Pay me back." The lie hung in the air, thick and stale, like year-old cigarette smoke. He knew I wouldn't push the issue. But the truth was, I desperately wanted to be included. I wanted to be the hero who made the trip possible, hoping that for once, the magnitude of my generosity would force a moment of genuine, lasting gratitude. I spent 3 weekends hunched over my laptop, meticulously crafting an itinerary that would make a seasoned travel agent weep. This wasn't just a trip. It was a masterpiece of financial engineering. I leveraged every secret I knew. 5 days in Rome in a presidential suite with a complimentary upgrade, a high-speed rail to Paris. And then, the centerpiece of the entire experience, 4 first-class round-trip tickets. The tickets alone had swallowed 800,000 points. The final, conservative cash value of the entire booking, flights, hotels, and exclusive tour passes, was easily over $25,000. It was the most expensive gift I had ever given, and it cost me 10 years of financial discipline. For 9 months. The family group chat was an instrument of torture. Mark posted constant updates, bragging about the incredible trip I planned and the amazing deals I found. My parents, Martha and David, soaked it up, beaming with pride over Mark's fabricated organizational skills. My contribution was less than acknowledged. It was completely erased. It was the necessary plumbing under their glorious facade, and as the saying goes, no one ever looks at the plumbing until it breaks. I told myself, it's fine. You're going too. You'll finally get a proper vacation. I clung to that thought like a lifeline. I had paid the price for my seat. 2 days before the flight, 2 days before I was supposed to board that lie-flat seat and finally relax, my body decided it had had enough. The stress, the long hours, the repressed resentment, it manifested as a violent, debilitating flu. I woke up with the kind of fever that makes your teeth ache and a dizzying inability to stand upright. My doctor confirmed it. I was grounded. My stomach twisted into a knot of nausea and panic as I made the call to Mark. I was still weak, my voice raspy and barely a whisper. "Mark, I'm so sorry, I can't fly. I have a bad flu, the doctor won't clear me. I've already canceled my single ticket, but everything else is locked in. The first-class seats for you, Mom and Dad, are safe." The silence on the line was not sympathetic. It was cold, calculating, and ultimately cruel. "Seriously, Clara, now? You waited until now to get sick? Don't you know how this screws up the car service we booked to the airport? Now we have an empty seat, and the whole dynamic is ruined." He didn't ask if I was okay. He didn't offer to bring soup. The sheer, staggering absence of concern for my health was a punch to the gut that was sharper than the fever. The only thing they cared about was their flow, their perfect, luxurious procession. I managed to hold back tears of frustration and hung up. Then the text started. My mother, Martha, weighed in immediately, her tone sharp and managerial. "Clara, this is terrible timing. Mark is very upset. We expect you to be more supportive next time. You need to pull yourself together before we get back." More supportive. I looked at the $25,000 hole in my travel account and laughed weakly. How much more supportive could I possibly be? But the final crushing blow came from Mark an hour later. It was a formal request for payment, attaching a screenshot of an invoice. "And make sure you still send me the $1,200 for your share of the hotel tax and the group insurance. You aren't getting a free ride just because you chose to cancel." I chose to cancel. I reread the message, my hands trembling with white-hot rage that temporarily eclipsed the chill of the flu. They were demanding I apologize for contracting the flu, and then attempting to shake me down for over $1,000 in phantom taxes and fees on a room I wouldn't occupy. This effectively confirmed their belief. I was a servant, not family. A disposable resource. Lying there, weak and defeated, the full weight of the past decade of invisibility and exploitation crashed down. That $25,000 worth of points wasn't a gift. It was ransom for a seat at the family table, and even after paying the full price, they had still locked the door on me. I realized with chilling clarity. They didn't want me at the table. They just wanted my resources. I was disposable the moment I ceased to be useful. I somehow managed to drag my aching body to my desk, opened my laptop, and stared at the screens glowing with booking confirmations. I had been given a choice: apologize, pay the fine, and remain the family fool, or seize control of the one asset that gave me power. Not this time, I thought, a quiet steel resolve settling in my chest. The fever was gone, replaced by a cold, surgical focus. The moment I decided to pull the plug, the sickness seemed to recede entirely. The fear was replaced by an almost clinical calm. I was done pleading for respect. I was going to command it. The plan was simple, elegant, and irrevocable. The key was the rewards program structure. I pulled up the airline's rewards dashboard. The beauty of booking with points is that the primary account holder, the points owner, has absolute dominion over the tickets, regardless of the passenger names. The names on the itinerary mean nothing. The points are the currency, and they belong to me. I meticulously went through the itinerary, starting with the biggest target, the flights. The 4 first-class tickets had cost me a combined 800,000 points. Mark had been boasting for 6 months about the champagne service and his lie-flat seat. I navigated to the booking, confirmed the 3 remaining passengers, and selected the nuclear option. Cancel trip, refund points to Origin account. The confirmation screen flashed up, demanding my final consent. "Are you sure you want to proceed? This action cannot be reversed." My finger hovered over the confirmation button, pausing only for a millisecond as a wave of doubt tried to wash over me. They are my family. This is cruel. They will hate me forever. But then I heard Mark's voice in my head. "You aren't getting a free ride just because you chose to cancel." I saw Martha's face, cold with disapproval. They didn't see me as family. They saw me as a budget line item. Click. The digital sound was barely audible, yet it felt like the firing of a starting pistol. A green confirmation bar flashed across the screen. 800,000 points successfully credited. The 3 first-class tickets, Martha's, David's, and Mark's, vanished from the system, replaced by a devastatingly empty travelogue. Next came the hotels, the 5-star suites. I canceled the Rome booking, reclaiming the points, then the Paris suite. The luxury they had demanded was systematically dismantled. Finally, the non-refundable high-speed rail passes, because those had been purchased with a travel credit I generated through a specialized bank card. The vendor happily issued a credit back to my professional account, avoiding a potential chargeback dispute with the primary booker. Within an hour, every single piece of the $25,000 dream vacation that Mark had spent 9 months taking credit for was utterly erased. The points were back in my account, shiny and secure, a digital testament to my own worth. I felt lighter than I had in years. I didn't send a warning. I didn't announce my actions. I blocked their numbers, blocked them on social media, and muted the family chat. I wanted the silence to be complete, only to be broken by the inevitable explosive call from the airport at the precise moment of their utter defeat. Saturday arrived, the day they were supposed to depart. I spent the morning exactly as they imagined they would be, in pampered leisure. I brewed an expensive cup of coffee, curled up with a new book, and waited. The flight was scheduled for 2:00 p.m. I expected the call around 1:00 p.m., right when they tried to check their luggage and confirm their first-class seating. At 1:07 p.m., my phone, which I had placed on speaker on my coffee table, began to scream. It was Mark. I let it ring once. Twice. The sound was an orchestral crescendo of impending failure. Then I answered. "Clara, what did you do with the tickets? We're at the check-in desk, and they say everything is canceled. There's no flight for us." His voice was high-pitched, dissolving from entitlement into genuine panic, the noise of the busy terminal loud in the background. "Oh, Mark," I answered calmly, taking a slow, deliberate sip of my coffee. "That's weird. I thought you booked your own trip. You seemed so confident in the family chat. Don't play games, Clara. It's all tied to your points account. You have to fix it. Right now. We're going to miss our flight and they won't even let us through security." "Fix it? You banned me from the trip, Mark. You made me apologize for getting sick. I realized that my loyalty wasn't valued, so I withdrew my investment. When a lender stops payment, the collateral goes back to the bank, right? The points are mine." Then came Martha, her voice already shrill with hysteria, grabbing the phone from Mark. "Clara, this is terrible. Your father is having palpitations in the ticketing line. This is sabotage. We told you to apologize and you did this?" "My explanation, Mother," I said, my voice ice-cold and steady, "is that you don't get to parade around in first class on my dime while treating me like dirt. The tickets were purchased with my personal rewards, representing thousands of dollars of my work. You taught me a valuable lesson. Respect comes before entitlement. I simply exercised my right as the account holder. Perhaps you can ask Mark, the brilliant organizer, for a solution." Mark screamed in the background, a desperate wail. "But what about our trip? The money we paid for clothes, passports, and baggage fees?" "You'll have to deal with that yourself," I replied, the finality absolute. "Unlike me, you have 2 weeks of unexpected free time to figure out the concept of financial responsibility. Have a great vacation." I hung up and placed the phone face down, the silence in my apartment a profound victory. Mark, Martha, and David never made it to Europe. They had to take an expensive, humiliating taxi ride back home, their luggage still packed with clothes they wouldn't wear. The lost ticket value, the lost hotel deposits, the car service fees. It amounted to the devastating loss of their $25,000 investment. The calls and angry voicemails continued for a week, fluctuating wildly between begging, guilt-tripping, and pure, unrestrained rage. I never listened to them. The emotional cost of that week, and the years leading up to it, was high, but the payoff was higher. The 800,000 points, my decade of sacrifice, were now safely tucked away for a trip I will take entirely on my own terms, with people who genuinely value my company. I didn't feel cheap satisfaction. I felt a profound sense of freedom. Mark and Martha learned an expensive lesson that day. Financial dependency is a rope, and the person holding the other end gets to decide when to cut it. They finally realized that their high-flying, entitled lifestyle was entirely predicated on my quiet, invisible labor. Once that labor was withdrawn, their facade crumbled instantly. I learned that the best form of revenge isn't destruction. It's building a fortress of boundaries and self-worth that no amount of family entitlement can breach. What would you have done if you were in Clara's shoes? Did I go too far by stranding them, or was this the only way to finally set a boundary against years of exploitation? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video if you believe the golden child should have to pay for their own mistakes. Subscribe for more stories where the invisible sibling finally gets their triumphant moment of justice.